In the archives of the Soviet Ministry of Culture, there's a classified file concerning a choreographic experiment conducted between 1971 and 1976 at the Leningrad Institute of Rhythmic Movement. The experiment was designated Proact Krugovoi Tanets, Project Circle Dance. The official purpose was to develop synchronized mass performance techniques for state celebrations and demonstrations. Large groups moving in perfect unison. Bodies coordinating to create living geometric patterns. The kind of spectacle the Soviet state valued for its display of collective harmony. The project succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. By 1974, they could synchronize more than 500 dancers to move as a single organism, their heartbeats aligning, their breathing coordinating, their movements precise to the millisecond. Then, they discovered the synchronization didn't stop when the music ended. The dancers remained connected. Their bodies continued moving in shared rhythm even when they tried to stop. The project was terminated in 1976, and all participants were medically quarantined. The official explanation is mass psychogenic illness. But the reports inside describe something that happened to human bodies when they synchronized too perfectly for too long. The project began in March 1971 under the direction of Svetlana Volkova, a choreographer who had trained at the Vaganova Academy and worked for years with the Kirov Ballet. Her vision was ambitious. Create a choreographic system that could coordinate hundreds or thousands of performers into perfectly synchronized movement without individual dancers counting or listening to verbal cues. She proposed using rhythmic training techniques, biofeedback, and what she called somatic entrainment to create natural synchronization at the physiological level.
Traditional choreography relies on external coordination through music and verbal counting. This creates artificial synchronization that breaks down under pressure. I propose training dancers to synchronize through internal biological rhythms, creating natural coordination that emerges from the body itself rather than being imposed from outside.
The ministry approved a pilot program. Volkova was assigned a studio at the Leningrad Institute of Rhythmic Movement and given funding for a team of 12 dancers. The initial training began in April 1971. Volkova's method was unusual. Instead of teaching dancers to count beats or follow musical cues, she trained them to become aware of their own heartbeats, their breathing patterns, the natural rhythms their bodies produced. She wrote in her training manual, "Every body contains rhythm. The heart beats, the lungs expand and contract. Blood pulses through vessels. These rhythms are usually unconscious, but they can be brought into awareness and, with practice, controlled and synchronized with others." The training sessions were intensive and strange. Dancers would spend hours lying in darkness, focusing on their heartbeats, learning to slow or accelerate their heart rate through concentration alone. They practiced breathing in unison, gradually extending the duration until groups could maintain synchronized respiration for minutes at a time. They moved in circles, hands linked, trying to feel each other's pulse and match their rhythms. An observer from the ministry who attended a training session in June 1971 wrote in his report, "The exercises appear more meditative than choreographic. Dancers move slowly or not at all, focusing inward." Volkova insists this foundation is necessary before complex movements can be synchronized. The atmosphere in the studio is peculiar, very quiet, very focused, almost trance-like. By September 1971, Volkova reported initial success. Her team of 12 could achieve what she called spontaneous coordination, moving together without counting, without music, simply by maintaining awareness of their shared rhythm. A demonstration was arranged for ministry officials. Volkova's report describes it.
The 12 dancers entered the performance space in silence. No music, no counting, no verbal cues. They began moving simple circular patterns at first, then progressively more complex geometric formations. Movement was perfectly synchronized. Multiple observers noted that watching the group created unusual sensory effect. One described it as hypnotic. Another said, watching the synchronized movement made her own breathing synchronize with the dancers.
The ministry was impressed enough to expand the program. By January 1972, Volkova had a team of 50 dancers and permission to develop more ambitious choreography. The training continued with the expanded group. Volkova introduced new techniques, synchronized walking patterns, coordinated breathing exercises performed by the entire group, extended sessions of circular movement where dancers maintained continuous motion for hours. A medical observer assigned to monitor the dancers' health, Dr. Anatoly Petrov, noted in February 1972,
participants show remarkable physiological coordination. Heart rate variability decreases across the group during training. During extended synchronization exercises, individual heart rates converge to within 5% variation. This level of physiological synchronization is unprecedented in my experience.
By mid-1972, the group could perform coordinated routines of considerable complexity without any external timing cues. 50 dancers moving as one, creating patterns that flowed and shifted with organic fluidity. But something else was happening that Volkova noted in her private training journals. She wrote in July 1972,
The dancers are synchronizing beyond the choreography. During breaks, they tend to move together unconsciously. Standing in groups, their breathing aligns. Walking to the cafeteria, their steps coordinate. Several have reported feeling connected to the group even when not in the studio. One dancer described it as always being aware of where the others are even when I can't see them.
Dr. Petrov conducted more extensive physiological monitoring in August 1972. His findings were unusual enough to warrant a detailed report.
Long-term participants in the program demonstrate persistent physiological synchronization even outside of training sessions. Heart rate measurements taken from dancers at rest, separated in different rooms, show correlation coefficients of 0.67, significantly above baseline for unconnected individuals. EEG measurements show similar correlation in brainwave patterns. Dancers report subjective sense of connection to group. Mechanism unknown. Recommend continued monitoring.
The ministry's response was to further expand the program. If 50 dancers could synchronize this effectively, could 500? Could 1,000? In January 1973, Volkova was given resources to recruit and train 500 participants. The goal was to create a mass performance for the May Day celebrations in 1974. The training scaled up accordingly. Large rehearsal halls, multiple sessions per day. Hundreds of bodies moving in circles, breathing together. Heart rates gradually aligning over weeks and months of practice. The physiological effects intensified with the larger group. Dr. Petrov's reports from mid-1973 document progressive changes in the participants.
Synchronization effects now observable after only 2 weeks of training. New participants begin showing heart rate correlation with established group members within days. EEG correlation developing faster than in smaller groups. Effect appears to strengthen with group size. Additionally, participants report increased empathic awareness. Many describe being able to feel the emotional states of other group members. Several report dreams that later proved to be shared with other dancers.
A dancer named Irina Sokolova described her experience in a journal entry from August 1973.
When I'm in the circle, I can feel all of us, not just physically, but deeper. I know when someone is tired before they show it. I can sense when the group's rhythm is about to shift. During the long sessions, it feels like I'm not one person moving, but part of a larger body. My arms and legs are just components of something bigger. It's beautiful and also disturbing. I'm not sure where I end and the group begins anymore.
The May Day performance was scheduled for May 1st, 1974. 500 dancers would perform in Palace Square, creating synchronized patterns visible from the air, a living demonstration of collective harmony. The rehearsals intensified through the winter and spring. Sessions lasted 4, 5, 6 hours. The dancers moving in endless circles, their rhythms merging, their bodies coordinating with precision that seemed to exceed human capability. Observers of the rehearsals consistently reported the same unsettling effect. Watching the synchronized movement was hypnotic, disorienting, almost hallucinogenic in its perfection. 3 weeks before the performance, Dr. Petrov filed an urgent medical report. He wrote,
"Participants are showing signs of what I can only describe as identity dissolution. In interviews, many have difficulty distinguishing their own experiences from those of other group members. Memory consolidation appears affected. Dancers recall events they did not personally experience, but which other members described. More concerning, several participants report being unable to stop synchronized movement even when consciously attempting to do so. During breaks, bodies continue moving in subtle rhythm with the group. Participants describe feeling pulled back into coordination against their will."
Volkova was aware of these effects but interpreted them as natural consequences of deep training. She wrote in her director's notes,
The dancers are achieving something profound. They are becoming a true collective organism. Individual consciousness remains, but it is nested within group consciousness. Their bodies have learned to coordinate at a level below voluntary control. This is precisely the goal we set out to achieve. The fact that it persists outside formal rehearsal merely demonstrates how deeply the training has embedded itself.
But on April 15th, 1974, something occurred during a rehearsal that could not be dismissed as successful training. The dancers were performing a circular pattern, 500 bodies moving in synchronized rotation. The session had been running for 3 hours. Then, according to multiple observers, something changed. A musician who was present described it.
"The movement became too perfect. I don't know how else to explain it. 500 people moving, and there was no variation at all. No individual differences. Every arm at exactly the same angle. Every step at exactly the same moment. It looked like one image repeated 500 times, and their faces were blank, not concentrating, not focused, just empty, like no one was home."
The rehearsal was stopped after 4 hours. When the music ended and Volkova called halt, the dancers didn't stop immediately. They continued rotating for another 7 seconds before the movement gradually decayed. Dr. Petrov examined several dancers immediately afterward.
Participants show signs of dissociative state, reduced response to verbal commands, diminished awareness of individual identity. Several could not recall their own names for several minutes after movement ceased. Vital signs remain synchronized across group despite cessation of coordinated movement. Heart rates varying by less than 2%. Respiration synchronized within same breath cycle. This is not normal physiological variation. Something has happened to their autonomic nervous systems.
An emergency meeting was convened with ministry officials, medical supervisors, and Volkova. The debate was documented in meeting minutes from April 16, 1974. One ministry representative stated,
"We cannot present a performance where the participants appear to lose consciousness of themselves. This is not the image of collective harmony we wish to project. It looks like possession or mass hypnosis."
Volkova responded, "The dancers are fully conscious. They have simply achieved complete synchronization. This is the natural end point of the training. Their individuality has not been lost. It has been integrated into collective awareness." Dr. Petrov disagreed.
This exceeds normal synchronization. The autonomic nervous system should not be capable of coordination at this level across hundreds of individuals. The dancers' bodies are acting as if controlled by a single source. But there is no external controller. The coordination appears to be emergent property of the group itself. I recommend immediate cessation of training and medical observation of all participants.
The May Day performance was canceled. The official reason given was scheduling conflicts. In reality, the ministry had decided the project had produced something too strange, too unsettling, too beyond normal human experience to display publicly. But canceling the performance didn't solve the problem. The dancers remained synchronized. Even with training stopped, their bodies continued coordinating. Dr. Petrov's reports through May and June 1974 document progressive effects.
Participants separated and sent home continue to show physiological correlation. Heart rate monitoring of dancers now living in different cities shows persistent synchronization. Though correlation strength decreases with distance, participants report continued sense of connection to group. Many describe being able to feel the other dancers regardless of physical location.
More disturbing, some dancers reported that they would begin moving in the circular pattern spontaneously, without conscious decision. A dancer named Mikhail Volkov described in a medical interview,
"I'll be at home, and suddenly I'm moving, walking in circles. My feet just start. I can stop if I concentrate hard, but it's like fighting a current. My body wants to move in the pattern. It wants to find the rhythm again. And I can feel the others doing the same thing. Wherever they are, moving in circles. We're all still dancing, even though we're apart."
By August 1974, the decision was made to medically intervene. All 500 participants were recalled to Leningrad and placed in medical observation. A team of neurologists, physiologists, and psychiatrists examined them extensively. The lead neurologist, Dr. Elena Petrova, submitted a comprehensive assessment in September 1974.
Participants demonstrate persistent neurological changes consistent with long-term entrainment of motor and autonomic systems. Neural pathways related to motor coordination and rhythmic movement show enhanced connectivity and reduced individual variability. EEG patterns across participants show remarkable similarity, suggesting synchronized baseline brain activity, Standard therapeutic interventions have proven ineffective at disrupting the synchronization. The changes appear to be structural rather than functional.
Treatment attempts continued through late 1974. Separation, medication, behavioral therapy, even experimental treatments involving electromagnetic stimulation to disrupt the synchronized patterns. Nothing worked. The dancers remained connected. Their bodies continued seeking the shared rhythm. In November 1974, Dr. Petrova wrote in a confidential memo, "We may have created a permanent condition. The synchronized training appears to have reorganized the participants' nervous systems at a fundamental level. They are no longer fully autonomous individuals. They are components of a distributed system that continues to function even when physically separated. I do not know how to reverse this." A new approach was tried in early 1975. Instead of trying to break the synchronization, researchers attempted to satisfy it. All 500 dancers were brought together in a large facility and permitted to perform the circular dance under controlled observation. The results were documented by Dr. Petrov. When the group is reunited and allowed to synchronize, participants report immediate relief. The compulsive movement ceases. They can rest. But the coordination when they move together is now even more complete than during training. 500 bodies moving with absolute precision. No variation, no individual expression. Just perfect collective motion. Observers report intense psychological effects from watching. Several medical staff experienced temporary dissociation and synchronization of their own movement with the dancers. This led to a new understanding of the condition. The dancers were not trapped in an individual compulsion. They were components of a collective pattern that required the full group to complete. When separated, each individual felt incomplete, driven to seek the pattern. When united, they could express the pattern fully and find rest. But the pattern was no longer under their conscious control. It had become autonomous, built into their nervous systems, operating below the level of voluntary thought. Through 1975 and into 1976, the dancers were kept together in a dedicated facility, allowed to perform the circle dance for several hours each day to maintain their psychological stability. Research continued, but no solution was found. The synchronization was permanent. The dancers had become something new, a collective organism that required all 500 members to function properly. Separated, they suffered. United, they lost individual autonomy. In March 1976, the decision was made to terminate the project officially and classify all documentation. The dancers were offered two choices: remain together in the facility under medical supervision, or be released with regular monitoring and scheduled reunions. Most chose release, accepting that they would need to gather periodically to perform the circle dance and satisfy the compulsion their bodies had learned. Volkova was removed from her position and reassigned to teaching basic choreography at a provincial academy. Her final statement, recorded during a debriefing in April 1976, defended her work.
I achieved what I set out to achieve. I created perfect synchronization, that it became permanent, that it integrated so deeply into the dancer's biology. This is not failure. This is proof that the human body is capable of coordination beyond individual consciousness. We created something new, a collective soma, a group body. Yes, it cannot be easily undone, but perhaps it should not be. Perhaps this is an evolutionary step we were not ready to take, but which the dancers have courageously taken for us.
Dr. Petrova's final assessment disagreed.
This was not evolution. This was inadvertent neurological modification on a massive scale. We synchronized 500 nervous systems and found that once synchronized deeply enough, they cannot desynchronize. We created a condition that has no medical precedent and no known treatment. The participants are healthy by standard measures, but they are no longer fully independent human beings. They require each other to function. They are permanent components of a collective system that we created and cannot dissolve.
After the project's termination, the dancers were tracked through periodic medical check-ins. Reports from the late 1970s and early 1980s document their continued condition. The synchronization persisted. Monthly gatherings were arranged where all participants could meet and perform the circle dance. These gatherings were described by observers as both beautiful and profoundly disturbing. 500 people moving in perfect unison. No music, no counting, just bodies coordinating with precision that exceeded anything human choreography should achieve. Some participants adapted successfully to their condition. They formed communities, lived near each other, maintained the connections their bodies required. Others struggled with the loss of full autonomy. Several left detailed accounts of what it felt like to be part of the circle. One dancer, whose written testimony was preserved in the classified files, described,
I am still myself. I have my own thoughts, my own will, but my body belongs partly to the circle. When we are apart, I feel incomplete. When we reunite, I feel whole. But the wholeness means surrendering individual control. When we dance, I am not deciding to move. The pattern is moving through me, through all of us. We are fingers on a hand. The hand moves, and we move with it.
By the late 1980s, as the Soviet Union collapsed, tracking of the participants became irregular. Many dispersed across different countries. The monthly gatherings became less frequent, more difficult to organize. Without regular synchronization, many participants reported deteriorating mental health, anxiety, compulsive movement disorders. But even separated by thousands of kilometers, some reported still feeling the connection, still sensing the others moving in the pattern, still experiencing the pull of the circle that their bodies had learned decades before. In 2001, a researcher attempting to locate surviving participants of the Circle Dance project found that approximately 300 of the original 500 were still alive. A reunion was organized, the first full gathering in more than 15 years. According to accounts from the event, when the participants came together, the synchronization returned immediately. Despite years of separation, their bodies remembered. They formed the circle, they began to move. And observers reported the same effects that had been documented in the 1970s. The hypnotic quality of watching perfect coordination, the sense of witnessing something that shouldn't be possible, the disturbing precision of 500 bodies moving as one. And a part 6. One participant, interviewed after the 2001 reunion, said,
Our bodies remember what we learned. The circle is still in us. It will always be in us. We became something together that we cannot become alone, and we cannot undo what we became. The circle remains, whether we dance it or not. We are still connected, still moving in rhythm, still part of the pattern that Volkova taught us to create. We are the circle. We will always be the circle. Until the last of us dies, the pattern continues.
The Circle Dance project remains classified in Russian archives. No official acknowledgement exists of what was created. But the pattern persists in the bodies of the surviving participants. A distributed rhythm maintained across hundreds of nervous systems. A collective coordination that refuses to dissolve. A dance that never truly ends because it was encoded too deeply into human flesh to ever be completely stopped. And sometimes, in different cities, in different countries, former participants report the same experience, waking at night with the urge to move. Standing in their rooms, their feet beginning to step in the circular pattern, their bodies remembering the rhythm. And in that moment, they feel the others doing the same, all across the world, standing in darkness, moving in the same pattern, still dancing the circle, still synchronized after all these years, still connected by the rhythm that was trained so deeply it became permanent, still performing a dance that has no end because it lives in the body itself, in the nervous system, in the very structure of how they move and breathe and exist in the world. The circle continues, the dance persists, the rhythm remains, synchronized, eternal, inescapable.